Welcome to this evening's meeting of the Westerville City Schools Board of Education. We're delighted to have all of you tonight. You can follow along on the screens. You can follow along on let's start over. The agenda will be displayed on the screens above where you may follow along. There will be two opportunities this evening to address the board. First being agenda item 6.1. The first set of public comments is relative to agenda items 7.1 through 12.2. Please state the agenda items you are referencing at the beginning of your comments. The second opportunity is agenda item 13.1. There is a sign-up sheet located on the table in the back of the room, and each speaker will have 5 minutes to address the board, and a timer will be shown on the screen. And with that, Ms. Marshall, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Bell?
Here.
Mrs. Meyer?
Here.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Here.
Mrs. Altman?
Here.
Mrs. Davidson?
Here. Will you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 13.1 is district highlights and recognitions. We do not have any this evening, which takes us to reports. 4.1, the impact of the new elementary schools, and Cheryl Relford and Scott Dorner joining us. Welcome.
Thank you. We're done. President Davidson, Vice President Altman, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg and Ms. Marshall. Tonight we have a general overview of the effects felt across the district after opening Minerva France Elementary School, and also including the renovations and additions at Amherst and Whittier and the renovations at Hawthorne Elementary School. So very brief history of our process. This work began in 2013 with the strategic planning process. Followed up in 2017 for an update. Also in 2017, based on that process, a community facility master plan committee was put together and made recommendations to the board. Subsequently, the board had a couple work sessions, modified those recommendations, and then we brought an issue to the community, successful combined issue on November 5th of 2019. In the 2013 and 2017 strategic planning process, it brought to light that the community's interest in modernizing our classroom spaces, and to provide safe learning environments. A community facility master plan committee met over the next several months in the summer and fall of 2017 to provide the district with a direction to move forward in updating our facilities. They subdivided their recommendations into 3 groups: critical, important, and when funds allow. Pertinent recommendations to this presentation were to add a new elementary school in the southern end of the district, renovate and expand Amherst Elementary, expand capacities at other elementaries, repurpose some buildings, and consider expanding all-day kindergarten and magnet programming if funds allowed. This slide summarizes the items related to the elementary buildings. What is important to note is that when the committee presented these recommendations to the board late in the fall of 2017, they acknowledged that they anticipated that the board may make changes to those recommendations based on additional factors and goals. After a couple board work sessions, the 10-year facility master plan was developed, which included the following changes related to elementary schools from those recommendations: add a new elementary school in the southern end of the district right away, renovate and expand Amherst Elementary School to provide more modern and safer learning environments, but not expand the student capacity, and to similarly renovate Hawthorne and Whittier Elementary Schools, perform some infrastructure updates to Hamby, Emerson, Longfellow buildings, and then what you'll notice in the first 5 years of that facility master plan, those are all of our buildings that were 55 years or older at the time. The second 5-year facility master plan would be the next group of buildings that hit that 55 mark. Bonds from issue 8 in November of 2019, along with permanent improvement funds, were then designated for these projects, Without the support of the community with issue 8, the district would not have been in the position to make the improvements that we're about to look at here tonight. So some of the rationale behind the work for these projects included resolving existing building capacity issues, improving learning environments, and to be prepared for potential growth. In this graphic, you'll see 4 blue highlighted boxes. You'll see that 3 buildings specifically that were over capacity. Additionally, many buildings required overflow at various grade levels as well. Wilder and McVeigh elementary schools in particular had tremendous overflow issues with the kindergarten grade level due to a lack of space in their buildings. We are delighted to say that at the opening of this school year, we had 0 students that were being overflowed. Now, there are a handful of kids right now, but it is significantly different than the dozens that we typically have during a school year. This is a summary of the construction to date. Focus has been on creating additional learning spaces with the addition of Minerva France Elementary School, the building additions at Amherst and Whittier Elementary Schools, while converting other spaces to more specialized learning environments for special education spaces, as well as for reading, English language learners, and other intervention spaces. Technology upgrades have also been made throughout the district. Just wanted to throw a couple of slides up here just to help point out some of those things that we were looking at. If you see, the fun stuff is on top, the before and after from Minerva France, but the real important point of this graphic is the layout of the building below. You'll see a couple of really dark blue spaces in the center of the diagram there. Those are a couple of new SLCs. So in our special education program, adding some SLCs here, and then there's a couple more highlighted there in Amherst, adding some SLCs there has allowed us to move some of those units around and create more space in some of our other buildings. So not only is it a benefit to the students attending these schools, it's been a benefit for students across the district. Specifically, you might recognize some of these slides are from previous presentations, but this one I'd like to just call out. If you look in the upper left-hand corner of the graphic on the left, you'll see a classroom that has 3 teachers in one space. So I'm about to show you a slide of what that looked like, and then a slide of what it looks like now. So it wasn't just about building new spaces, it was about renovating existing spaces to be more useful as designed. So to the right, that graphic shows you how that same quadrant was redesigned. So the picture on the left, 3 teachers subdivided the space with bookshelves. These are students that need additional support. So we've placed some of our students who need the most support in some challenging spaces. I'm really happy to say that room on the right is just a single person's room, and the kids won't have all of the other distractions of all the other teachers going on in the space. This is at Hawthorne Elementary School. Hawthorne Elementary School also has 2 SLCs added to that building through this process. One of the things you'll know is we took about 250 kids out of Hawthorne. When you take 250 kids out of Hawthorne, you empty some classrooms. So what you can also see in several other areas where we've taken classrooms and actually made hard wall changes and subdivided them into smaller spaces. So for some of our intervention students. So it's a much better design at this point. At Whittier Elementary School, you'll notice on the end, on the graphic on the right, the 2 rooms in white, those are the 2 additions. That's a music and an art room. What's nice about the addition is that every student will be able to experience the new part of the building. The light blue area in the center of the building, the 2 blue areas highlighted in the center of the building, because of this we were able to get an additional kindergarten classroom, but also 2 SLCs that are being designed for that purpose, rather than just a general ed classroom with some furniture. Right-sizing buildings allowed us to reallocate spaces for special education programs as well as other targeted intervention programs. Other benefits can be found in the efficiencies in managing a building, as well as staffing FTE efficiencies. We've already mentioned the positive benefits related to overflow. So we'll talk about right sizing just a little bit. The realignment process was completed in late 2020 and early 2021. And now that Minerva France is open, we are able to see the actual balances across the district. So what you're going to see here is that each of our elementary schools had a target capacity of 450 or 600 students, with the exception of Hamby, Emerson, and Point View. So 450 was our target size. We can see the actual right sizing of Faust, Hawthorne, and Mark Twain. So Faust, 118 students less this year than in the 1920 year when we did the realignment. Hawthorne, 230 students less, and then Mark Twain, 150 students less. These student counts are essentially the student count at Minerva France. Another benefit of right-sizing our elementaries is the space created at Point View Elementary School through this process. We are beginning the process of getting some spaces at Point View approved for additional preschool classrooms. The student needs for this program are increasing so quickly that we are unlikely to be able to house the entire program at the Early Learning Center this year. Point View was renovated in 2016 and is in close proximity to this building, which should be beneficial in the shared itinerant staff that has to go back and forth. Outside of space efficiencies, we also had staffing efficiencies. As you can see, the numbers in this table that are in red, those were staff that were transferring out of buildings that were right-sized, that had a lower enrollment. And those, we were able to transfer quite a few more staff than originally anticipated to Minerva France. Staff FTE, not the actual people, but the FTE to Minerva France. It also allowed us to create space with the extra space within each building. Based on some of this right sizing, it allowed more space to be open for all-day kindergarten options for parents if they wanted to choose those. And then it also, the transference of FTE was really a unique experience for us this year because so much was moving around. I think in the end, there were probably, maybe 40 WEA positions at Minerva France, but there were about 180 moves, right? So there was a lot of moving parts going on. But what you'll see is that the K-5, in the K-5 area, opening Minerva France, adding sections for all-day kindergarten, we netted at about 11 FTE for K-5. Then you take away the 4 FTE that used to be assigned to Longfellow, and you've dropped that net down to 7. And then we had to add some additional things like a nurse, there are another 10 media specialists, another 10 FTE that you just didn't transfer because that building still was going to need them. So we had a really a positive outcome with our staffing efficiencies through this process. So one other thing I want to throw out there about the magnet expansion, because we did expand 3 sections of magnet this year. Had we not expanded at magnet, we would have added FTE in some other buildings because of the capacities in those buildings. So in a couple cases, it was a wash for us. So really what happens is then you've got parent choice, parent and student choice at really no significant cost to us, the way that it worked out. We'll just keep going. The new space is available due to the addition of Minerva France Elementary School, the addition at Amherst, and the repurposing of space at Hawthorne Elementary School after right-sizing the student count has allowed for balance in the placement of our SLCs across the district. Balance allows for resources to be more efficiently allocated to support these classrooms. In buildings where the number of SLCs has decreased, space and opportunity is opened up for kindergarten students. Primarily, we did not have the overflow out of McVeigh and Wilder this year that we've seen in past years because of this. So if you take a look at Wilder and McVeigh, they had 4 SLCs in their buildings. That's been reduced to 2 SLCs in their buildings at this time, which opened up 2 classrooms, which allowed then for more students to stay. I think we overflowed about 20 kids out of each building for kindergarten last year because of a lack of space. So that, to me, is one of the real benefits for our families in this process. and I've mentioned all-day K a couple of different times, all-day kindergarten is an optional tuition-based program that parents are able to select if seats are available. This year, by creating space in the building, we created enough space. We actually created more space than this, but more than 200 students than previous years selected all-day kindergarten. That's an additional 10 sections of all-day kindergarten that we were able to add this year, which also contributed to a lot of the staffing movement going on. And on a side note, because we were able to open up space in every building this year to expand kindergarten at their home school, we were able to sunset the Longfellow program. And so while Longfellow still has students, the best of both worlds, students are right there, what it has allowed for us to do is, if you look at that list, you can see the last few years of our Longfellow student attendance and where they were coming from. Well, those are the buildings that we created space in, right? So students, to make that choice, can now make it at their home school as opposed to having to get on a bus, a separate bus, and go to Longfellow. So in general, we built a building, we added on at Amherst, and in that process, and a small addition at Whittier, and in that process, we were able to create spaces for our intervention programs, right-size some of our classrooms or some of our buildings, and also expand all-day kindergarten. And on a side note, we'll have some space now to expand preschool as it's getting right there, and also gave more parents the option for the tuition-based kindergarten program. So it wasn't just a building. Any questions?
One. See, it didn't last. I said before the meeting I had nothing to say, but this is just one quickie. As we look at what's happened here, this is, it's really a massive change in a lot of ways, significant positive change. It is exactly what we had hoped was going to happen, and we're seeing that happen. So what I'm wondering is if you would like to contact some of our service groups in town, other entities, and offer to provide a brief presentation about what this means. Because, you know, this is something that everybody agreed to pay for. You know, we are all paying for it as a community. So what is it we're getting, and what's the realization of the hopes that we all had initially? So if you could see, you know, get the Rotaries, the Lions, see who else we can talk to about what happened here, I think it would be very helpful for people to see this really remarkable success story.
I have a couple questions. So preschool, how many classes did you say would be added at Point View after licensing?
We're not necessarily certain how many we are going to add, but we are going to go through the process of making sure that a significant number are approved for it in the event that we need to add to there. So I would guess that we're probably going to take 2 classroom spaces up before the end of the school year there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're growing quickly, and but at a minimum, we'll look at 3, getting 3 approved. 5 would probably be better, but I don't think we'll need 5.
So big supporter of preschool, definitely see the benefits. Tell me if, and I may have made this up, but is this building, when it was first built, it was built so preschool could be on the left, but we could expand on the right? There's enough room. So as we think about our next 5 years facility plan, that could be something we talk about if we want to keep all of the students in one building.
Absolutely.
So that is
Yeah, I think this building is actually designed to mirror this wing on the other side of the building.
And then the other side. Okay, okay. And then what feedback have we had from staff and students? Like, what are they saying as they enter
I'm going
buildings?
to let the teaching and learning people talk about
Okay,
that a little
sorry.
bit. That's okay.
Yeah.
So good evening. I've had the pleasure of visiting every elementary school in the district over the first month of school and getting ready to do a second round. And it is a lot of buzz and excitement happening in the buildings. You can walk through the hallways. Teachers are saying, the hallways are not as crowded as what they used to be. The kids are not on top of each other. Kids are engaged from day one, and I shared that in the board update. You saw kids engaged from the onset. Recess spaces are not as, I'm going to say, hectic as what they were with an extra 230 students, no longer at Hawthorne. And so people are excited. Intervention classes are happy that they're able to pull students into a space and focus on that targeted intervention with very limited distractions. Classroom spaces, as I visited them, kids are just enjoying being back in those spaces. In some of our buildings, the class sizes have not decreased a whole lot because the numbers of sections we can still accommodate, but in some of the other buildings, class sizes may be a little smaller, and so they're reaping the benefits of that as well. A lot of great stuff going on. Anything else?
I just wanted to point out, kind of back to the SLC part and the 55-year-old benchmarks, if you recall, and when we were going through this discussion, specific to special educational IDEA, that's 1974. So anything built before that, didn't think in terms of special education, certainly didn't think about EL, intervention, reading specialists. Those were program pieces that weren't there, and so the classroom spaces we were putting together were cobbled together, as Scott shown, because that's what we had. So you're taking students who were needed the most academic assistance and putting them in the least conducive environment for that. And so in my casual stop-in, particularly with some of our teachers in those spaces, they're, as Cheryl said, they're just excited to have their own space, figuring out, make it their own too, which is always fun to watch how a teacher makes their space their own. And kids are responding to that. So it was nice to be able to spread that. I know when you look at the redistribution of the special education classrooms across the district, that for some of those buildings that had 4 or 5 sections, there's a different level of work that comes with that, both just from the magnitude of IEP meetings that are part of that and the pressure on the staff to do those. So now it's a little bit more evenly distributed, and I think that is helpful as well. So Scott and the team has done a great job. Kudos to all the people who did all that work. Our internal people that work for us, just great job of managing the dust. It was a little close there, Mr. Dorn, there, right up to the very end, but we pulled it off, and staff did a great job making sure we're ready, particularly the maintenance staff, custodial staff did a great job, as well as our teachers and principals. So we really appreciate what they did. And to the community for, as Dr. Nestor Baker said, that was a big ask. And I like the idea of more publicly sharing where we're at, because that's a lot of work, a lot of benefit that people may not see behind the curtain so much, so we do need to share that one.
We've been fortunate to work with some great contractors, some really good ones for these projects. But also the design team did a very nice job because Hawthorne and Whittier are just beginning. But in the very first 10 weeks, we made all the hardwall changes to create those smaller intervention spaces, just to get that out of the way. And so working on a year and a half schedule to get those done in the first 10 weeks, good design, but also great contractors. Thank you.
Actually,
Okay.
I do have one question, and this might be a little tangential, and you might not have, a response right now, but I'm thinking on all the different operational pieces, right? And opening a new building, things like food service, and of course, transportation, we added additional tiers. Are there any, has everything there gone pretty much as expected? I mean, how's food service working, right, with the additional building, for example? Everything been pretty smooth? Anything we need to keep our eyes on operationally?
When you start making a lot of adjustments, there are going to be some hang-ups there that maybe we couldn't foresee or we thought would work out nicely. We just spent an hour the other day discussing, because we have 2 satellite food service kitchens that feed all of the elementary schools. Well, it's not like one feeds the later schools and one feeds the earlier schools. It just doesn't work like that. So really the only adversity that we've discovered really in that area is that we don't have enough time to get back to one of the buildings to get the food carts, right? So figured it out, work around it, but those are just the little types of things that come up, and we've got a great team that's willing to sit down and talk through those things. So yeah, transportation is transportation is an area where it just depends on where you're sitting, how you perceive it. I perceive that what we've done has been very good in terms of if we were still in the same scenario of last year, we would be feeling it a lot harder than we're feeling it right now. So we haven't affected an elementary school. We haven't had to make a change for anything like that. We've definitely reduced the number of double backs, combined routes. Got some great transportation people sitting behind me right now through their work. What we have we've had to do is we've had to modify the secondary schools' schedules, I think on 4 occasions so far. And those are the students that can handle that change the easiest, especially the parents who can handle that change the easiest, generally speaking. So, but yeah, I do think things have gone very well at the beginning of this year from an operations side.
Great, thank you. I know this first month or so of school is where those smaller things get ironed out, and we do have a great team, and as always, so grateful to our transportation department because it's been tough.
They're marvelous.
Doing amazing. So
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you. Okay, 5.1, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting held Monday, August 22nd, 2022, and the special meeting held on Monday, August 29th, 2022, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions here? Hearing none?
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. We do not have any public comments this evening, which takes us to 7.1, public hearing. George Tosi, am I saying that correctly? Okay, sorry. And it looks like members of the public are invited to provide input to the board, but it doesn't look like we have anyone here this evening.
Would you like me to just say what this is?
Yes.
So I believe it's Mr. Toy is how he pronounces his
Okay.
name. I'm not quite sure, though. But so Mr. Toy was a cafeteria recess aide and crossing guard for us last school year. He has since retired, and the retirement system requires us to hold a public hearing if we are reemploying someone in the same position that they held prior. So that's what the public hearing is for tonight. If anyone has any feedback on his reemployment, the podium's available. I would also like to mention he was requested by multiple buildings to return, and everyone was very disappointed that we had to go through this process to get him back. So,
Okay, well, it doesn't look like we have any public comments, so moving on. 8.1, resolution to approve insurance premiums for calendar year 2023. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And Ms. Marshall, you want to talk to us about this?
yes, thank you, President Davidson, members of the board. So we are setting the insurance premiums for calendar year 2023, so beginning with January 1st, 2023. Good news, our insurance premiums for dental and vision insurance will remain the same for calendar year 2023, and our medical premiums will increase by 5.4%. We don't like seeing increases ever, but we were projecting to see 8 to 9% increase, so we're very pleased with where we landed with the 5.4%. And as you know, we are self-insured, so it goes to the self-insurance fund, and we project based on that.
Any questions here? Hearing none?
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. 8.2, a resolution to approve the purchases in accordance to ORC 5705.41 and Board Policy 6320. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Marshall, whenever you're ready.
Thank you again. So this is a then and now purchase order. So this is where we had a purchase order that was opened after the invoice date. This is for our new phone system. There was some confusion with the contract. We thought this invoice would be paid by a third-party contractor, which we are paying. It's billed separately, so we had the purchase order open to the wrong individual. So we just need the board's approval to pay this.
Questions? Hearing none?
Mrs. Ottman?
Yes.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. Would everyone be okay if we took the personnel consent agenda as one item? Okay. Personnel consent agenda, 9.1 through 9.11. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
And Mr. Dorn is joining us.
Thank you again. I would like to present to you for your consideration tonight's personnel consent agenda. The items in tonight's relatively brief agenda represent regular action items for this time in the school year with regards to personnel. This evening, we are asking the board to consider and approve the following. We have our usual array of resignations and changes of assignments, 1 licensed resignation, and we welcome 8 classified and 2 licensed employees to our district. The board will also see an MOA with the Westerville Education Association for gifted compliance support. As you know that we are down a gifted coordinator. Right now we have Chris Doolittle helping us manage that program, but we also need some people with gift certifications to do some compliance things for us, and Angie Heath has stepped up to help us out. Very happy for Angie's help. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions for you.
Hearing none. Thank you.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ottman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. We do not have any old business tonight. We do not have any new business tonight. 12.1, recommended action standing business. Resolution declaring impracticality for transportation. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you again.
Dorn meeting.
This resolution is requesting the board to approve adding several students to our impractical to transport list. Ohio law allows for public schools to determine the impracticality of transportation after consideration of a number of factors, such as the cost of providing transportation and the number of students transported. The Office of Purchasing and Logistics evaluates each listed private school student per the requirements of Section 3327.02 of the Ohio Revised Code for determination status. Approving this resolution would allow the district to offer payment in lieu of transportation in the manner provided for by the Ohio Revised Code. The payment in lieu amount is determined by the state. From the recent provisions in the budget bill, the minimum amount for payment in lieu is to be 50% of the amount determined by the department as the average cost of pupil transportation from the previous school year. The cost for fiscal year 21 was established at $1,077.10, and therefore 50% payment would be $538.55. The cost for fiscal year 22 is not established at this time, which is why we use fiscal 21. It is recommended that the board approve this resolution.
Any questions? Hearing none.
Dr. Nesterbaker?
Yes.
Mrs. Ottman?
Yes.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. 12.2, overnight field trip. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And Ms. Baldwin, welcome.
All right, good evening. Thank you, President Davidson, members of the board, Dr. Kellogg, Mrs. Marshall. We have one overnight field trip for your review this evening, and it is for the girls varsity basketball team at Westerville North to attend a scrimmage in Wadsworth. They would head up after school on Friday, November 4th, and return to Westerville that Saturday after playing their scrimmage. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Questions? All right, thank you.
Hearing none. Thank you.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. 13.1, public comments. We do not have any this evening, which takes us to board comments. And who would like to go first?
I can go. I just wanted to take a moment. I think it's already been said, but I really wanted to thank the custodial staff and the food service staff and the transportation staff for all the work that you guys have been doing. I know that you've been doing a lot of work, and you're the backbone of our schools and making sure that they continue to operate. So thank you very much. And just the Westerville Education Foundation is holding their Grow and Glow at Minerva France on Sunday from 2 to 8 p.m. It's an opportunity to see the school. I know that's already been open, but it's another opportunity to get to see the school and see what resources are available in the school district. That's it.
Okay, I do have a couple things. So September is Suicide Prevention Month, and I would like to invite everyone to Westerville Education Challenge Night of Hope this Saturday at Jim McCann Stadium at Westerville North High School. It is a 5K and 1 mile hustle, so you can walk, run, whatever you would like to do, from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. It's going to end with luminaries to light up the night and recognize all of those impacted by mental health and suicide. So please join us if you can. And then lastly, I just want to express my support to our city council members and their passage of resolution 2022-15. And that's it for me this evening. .1, the board will meet in regular session on Monday, September 26, 2022 at 6 p.m. here at the Early Learning Center. And with that, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Bell?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes.
Dr. Nestor Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Davidson?
Yes. And with that, we're adjourned.